I haven't done a Kickstarter for me in quite some time.
Right. Well, you want to do a Kickstarter for yourself?
No, like picked up something for me.
Right.
I was getting Jimmy Palmiotti does a bunch of them.
Sex and Violence.
Yeah, so I get those, but he hasn't done one of. I think that like whatever the last one of those he did was the last one that I got.
Right.
But he did like a couple other ones that are not that, so I didn't pick up those.
Right. And do you count what that guy did on the show as a Kickstarter, or
yes, I guess, but
it's not. It's not Kickstarter. If you count Kickstarter like Kleenex, then yes, it's a crowdfunded.
Yes, okay.
But there's Indiegogo,
yes,
there's this or that. So that's the last one that we did. You know,
right? I mean? That was the Jason Sandberg.
Yes,
Jupiter. Yes.
So,
again, I caught you with your pants down here. Not literally, I hope. Throwing that at you, but yes, when we had Jason on the show last November, pre the launch, and then we got that. And again, it's so weird, as you said, like. I see all these different things like, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, like they're the same, but they're different.
Right. They're different companies doing the same thing.
Yeah. Cause I think and again, I think because as far as I know, once a Kickstarter is done, it's done. And I know Jason's Indiegogo is kind of up that you could still go there and buy it.
Yeah. I don't know if you can buy things still through. Maybe you could on Kickstarter if you can do it the same way, but maybe you can set it up to be a Kickstarter store too. Yeah. I don't know, because most people who do the Kickstarter and then they take, and I'm only going by comic products.
Yes.
Then put them in previews. You know what I mean? And that's where they'll be sold. It's like, we'll use this to crowdfund it to get it printed. Mm-hmm. And then I have all the stuff and that'll back me the money to put it in previews later. I've seen a lot of stuff. Scott Snyder did that with Canary, which I'm picking up, which is like an Old West book. Mm-hmm. That was like, he did the Kickstarter, but I'm like, all right, the Kickstarter's like $30-$40 to get everything. Now that it's out, it's $4.99 a piece. You know what I mean?
Right. And I know the Zorro book is Kickstarter.
Right. But will be probably in stores after that.
Yeah, it is. I think it's in the January or February. So it might be the February or March solicitations. I got to double check.
Yeah.
I got to do Control F Zorro,
Right. I know the previews come out this week, so that's when I'll find it. Like, I don't really pay any attention to that until I start perusing the actual previews and stuff.
Right. And it's weird because it's like practically the end of the month as we're recording this and as many of you are hearing this. And because everything is rolling out late and Christmas itself is on a Monday, like my mind is all screwed up. But usually by now, like the Friday before the previews are in hand, mm-hmm. you can get the short order form off of Diamond Site, and it's still not up as of this recording.
Right. That's all a mess. And I'm with you. I'm so messed up on time.
Yeah.
Me and your other co-host on At Odds, we're doing some Grand Theft stuff, and we had to do it 3 days in a row to get a prize, whatever. It didn't matter. So he tells me on Thursday, he's like, okay, we have to do this for 3 days. And I'm like, well, that's going to screw. He's like, can we do this tonight? And I said, that's going to screw me up because, in 2 days it's Christmas Eve. And he's like, oh, okay, we'll figure it out. And he texts me back. He's like, no, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday's Christmas Eve. I was like, I've checked out of work on Thursday. I thought Thursday was Friday and then Monday was a day. I'm like time has no meaning to me right now.
Yeah, and today, as we record this, Tuesday is my first day back to work in almost 2 weeks, a week and a half, whatever it was. Right. So my mind was even further fried. But just last thing on to close the loop on the Kickstarter, Indiegogo, whatever. Joanne Starr, who is doing the Fire and Ice book,
right?
She had a book that's currently being published or just wrapped up over at Boom, called Sirens of the City, and that was done 3 years ago. It started pre-pandemic and rolled through the pandemic. Mm-hmm. She did it through not Kickstarter, not Indiegogo, but yet some other crowdfunding thing.
Right. There's multiple, yeah.
Right. And then, like how you mentioned Scott Snyder's thing. So she goes and she has this this project that gets funded. You know, I'm sure it wasn't a huge runaway success like something that a Scott Snyder or Jimmy Palmiotti would do. No negative reflection on her, but, you know, 3 years ago, she didn't have the name that they did, but her name is big enough that she has the success with the gimmick, gets the DC writing gig. Boom comes to her and is like, hey, you got anything? And she's like, yeah, I got this thing that I kickstarted 3 years ago. And they're like, great, we'll publish it.
And I mean that, and like you said, it's not a knock. It's just you got to get your legs under you first.
Yeah.
You got to get, you know, it's easier once you're working for the big two to get something noticed. You know what I mean? Unless you're like a shooting star, you know, which happens occasionally. Like, even though like Kirkman was, you know, he did some stuff at Marvel. That doesn't that wasn't it. It was Walking Dead that got him famous. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's one of the few.
And actually, it was one of those things where, like, Invincible comes out first, and that's successful.
Okay, fair enough. I forgot about that.
And then, like, I think it's around the time the third trade of Invincible comes out is when Walking Dead hits.
Mm-hmm.
And then Walking Dead, like, hits. And, like, not only does he have, like, this one thing that just blows up in Walking Dead, he's also got the other thing in Invincible that's just, like, on the back burner cooking. It's been there for, like, a year, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, just the residual heat just blows everything up.
Right. Then it gets the Walking Dead rub, you know?
Yes.
So.
Yes.
But, yeah.
So just, I was telling Brett and DJ this past weekend because I saw them. We went to go see Iron Claw. I will not bore you with the details of it, but I liked it quite a bit.
DJ gave me his review at the shop today. So.
Oh, okay. Good. We had the discussion on the way home in regards to, I think we all felt the same way. Like, it wasn't a perfect movie, and a lot of it would be, it was a Friday night or Saturday night or whatever night it was, and it was like packed-ish, like there was like a couple like empty seat stragglers. There was a group of 3 teenage boys that kept like moving seats and seats. They had definitely theater hopped to get into it,
Right, because they were taking the reserve seats. Like,
yes. And my thought would be is, how would a like cursory wrestling fan? It's like, yeah, I know Roman Reigns and John Cena and Stone Cold, and that's like really it.
Right.
Like, if they saw this, or like just somebody who has I remember that's that Hulk Hogan phony stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they go see this, like what their take on it would be, because people like myself and Brett and DJ, I think, are genetically predisposed to like this movie.
Right. I get it.
But where I was going with this was, so this past weekend, we're doing all the Christmas stuff with all the different, pockets of the family all across the greater northeastern Pennsylvania area. And my kid is telling me, and this is one of those like learning lessons that I had to have with my kid. So the game that we played, the name of the game isn't important. It was like a rhythm-based game,
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, you ever see like a Dance Dance Revolution type thing, Parappa the Rapper, Guitar Hero sort of thing?
No, I know what you mean. And you need a method for that kind of stuff, but go ahead.
Right. So there was one that was like a free-to-play game. It picked up pretty big. The guy did a Kickstarter for it to do like a full release of it with all the other stuff and like this whole thing. And the game ends up he ends up earning like $2 million for the Kickstarter. And then my kid tells me he saw a video where the guy never delivered the game and just spent the money on crack, specifically crack. Okay.
Right. He didn't do it in hotels outside an airport, did he?
No.
Okay.
So I go, that doesn't sound right. So let me vet this through another source, because I don't trust anything that comes through like a TikTok or a YouTube short.
What? The most trusted name in vetting sources.
So I look it up and I'm like, oh, is the creator's name this? And he goes, yes. I go, so I look that up. So apparently last week, the creator had made some sort of tweet in regards to the conflict with Israel and Palestine, right? And I don't know if what he said was pro-Israel or anti-Israel or pro-Palestine or anti-Palestine. I just know he made a remark, okay?
Right.
That's all it takes. So then people start combing through his old tweets, and they find likes of his from 10 years ago.
Right.
Of him liking fan art of anime characters.
Oh, no.
That then becomes he was liking underage porn.
Oh, no.
So now the guy has to come out and get in front of the story and say, hey, it's crazy that because of one tweet, I have to defend likes of mine from 10 years ago. And hopefully these allegations don't, because I'm not deleting my tweets. I'm not unliking anything that I said because I'm not trying to cover up what I did because I didn't do anything wrong. Feel free to go through all of my stuff. And there was a pocket of people that were trying to use his remarks to say like, oh, well, the character that was depicted here, this particular version of them was aged this in this specific episode. And it died down pretty quickly. And this was like over like December 16th, 17th, and 18th. And this was December 22nd that my kid was seeing a YouTube short saying that the guy went and spent $2 million on his Kickstarter on crack.
Right.
Which again,
that's a lot of crack.
That's a lot of crack. Well, it's just that we were talking about Kickstarters and crowdfunding things, and I just had an experience with that this past week.
And we were doing crack before we started recording, so it all comes around.
And again, that's spec trucks as well, you know?
Right, yep.
So how did I saw the pictures, I saw the live up to the minute updates. How did Fish Math 2023 go?
Fish Math went without a hitch. Getting it and bringing it to my brother's house, I'll discuss a little bit in a second. But when up, you saw the line wasn't big, and it went like while I was there, it would disappear too. Like, you know what I mean? Because I went and I literally walked in and I took my picture of the sign and like, here we go, and getting myself pumped in the parking lot.
I saw they were hiring. I'm just saying.
Just saying. So I went in. The line was kind of long. It was not kind of long, but there was a couple people in front of me. And other than an old couple behind me who was every sitcom's annoying old couple in line, like, oh, what are we going to get? Are we going to get 7 pieces? Well, I think it comes in 8, honey. Well, but I don't want 8. We don't want 8 pieces. Well, what sides are we going to get? Well, you can get hush. I don't know. Like, it was like one of those, it was like the most like inane conversation. It was going on for like the whole time I was in line. I was like, whatever. Fish Math is all encompassing. Everybody's welcome on the boat. You know what I mean? But it was just funny that they were like the stereotypical old couple who couldn't see the board and didn't understand things. And I was like, I'm about 1.5 years away from that. So that was no problem. Got up and I was like, okay, I'm doing 2 orders. And they're like, what are you doing? I said, 4 here. I'm getting a clam dinner. And I said, and then I want 24 pieces of fish, no sides. Like, got it. He's like, he rang me up for the one. Do you know what I mean? He's like, I have to do it separate. I said, not a problem. Rang me up. He's like, gave me my ticket with the number. Rang me up for the second one. I was like, now usually the fish takes, and a bunch of crumblies. So the fish usually takes a long time. So I'm like, I'll get my clam dinner. That'll go quick. And then the fish will come. So they're like, here's your number for your clams. I'm like, oh, okay, I got the thing. I put it down. I got my cocktail sauce. And as I was walking over with the cocktail sauce to sit down, they yelled out my number for the fish. I was like, okay, it's only, 1.5 miles to my brother's house. So it's not going to get so cold. We're going to put it in the oven. So I sat down and ate. And as I got the stuff, they're like, what do you want? I said, I have 24 pieces. Can I have lots of vinegar? And can I have lots of tartar sauce? So I see her throwing like 7 or 8 packs of tartar sauce in the bag. And I'm like, that's not going to be enough. And then she turns around and underneath where all the prep stuff is in the window for the kitchen to hand stuff out, they have pre-made tartar sauces in like little like tubs, little to-go tubs.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I'll just give you 2 of these. And I was like, okay, so I have 8 packages and 2, and I ate my thing. And I went back, 2 tubs. And I was like, I went back. I said, can I get some more tartar? And she gave me 2 more tubs and some more vinegar. And I was like, that's enough for everything. We put the tubs on the table for the meal. And then if anybody takes fish to go home, they can take the packets. Works beautiful. I'm fine with this. My agita didn't act up at all. Finished my meal, rang the bell on the way out because they did a wonderful job. Drove down to my brother's house, put it in the oven in tin foil, and my brother put the oven on warm. I show up at my brother's house at 5 o'clock to eat, as we are, and my brother's like, well, at my father's house, the flu has ripped through people, so only my father's showing up. And on my sister-in-law's family, the COVID and stuff ripped through that. So we had tons of fish left over.
Yes.
That's the only problem. Like, the math was right until we started, people didn't tell me they were sick until after I went. And then that rolled into Christmas Day, where it was just me, my brother, and my sister-in-law having Christmas dinner because everybody was either just getting over COVID or had the flu. And my sister-in-law was like, I have no more sick days left this year, so I can't get sick, or they're going to, I won't get paid for those days. So it was like, no, I didn't go anywhere with all the people being sick. My Christmas was very compartmentalized, so. But otherwise good.
I'm glad. You're not sick. You avoided whatever illness is going on.
So far, knock on wood. I'm going to knock on wood, and then you're going to hate that. That's probably one of your pet peeves.
No, it's not. It's fine. We can get into that. And I'm sad that I haven't done this more often. If I was looking at episode numbers and so forth, it's been almost 2 years since we've done this, maybe a little bit more.
Right.
And I can tell you there's some that I'm going to eliminate from the list.
Oh, good. We're scratching some off.
Yeah. So this is something that I plan on doing every year. Someone who listens to a lot of podcasts. I've actually converted to listening to a lot of podcasts on YouTube, which is something that I hated.
Now you're on board?
I'm on board with it. A lot of folks do video stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I'll notice one of the things that we'll get into is there's certain podcasts that I listen to for some reason when I grab the audio, like off the RSS feed or whatever, the audio quality there is less than what it is on the YouTube channel.
Okay.
So I'll just listen to the YouTube channel. Sometimes there's channels that put stuff out early on their YouTube channel, and then the MP3 RSS feed or whatever doesn't come out until like days later.
Right.
So if I want to listen to it right now, I could listen to it here on the YouTube, or I could wait 2 to 6 days for them maybe to remember to put it on their RSS feed.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. And then even further still, and this is actually one, so this is one that I'll add to the list, begrudgingly. We're removing some, and I'll add a new one on that's specifically for me. Okay? So starting right at the top, saying yeah, no, when you're about to make a point about something, I hate that. Everybody needs to stop doing that. It's been 3+ years. People still haven't stopped doing it.
Right. And I'm going to ask, because usually I like to know things about me. Do I do that one?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Anyway, okay.
Have I told this story before?
I do that as a rib to you.
I do that as a rib to me as well. So I'm taking that one off the list because I've taken that one back.
Right.
Okay. Saying to me, before you're about to make some sort of opinion, or saying me personally, I do this.
In my opinion, kind of a deal.
Well, that's it. To say, in my opinion, you're wrong, or in my opinion, I like this better. But there's just something specifically about the phrasing of me personally I don't like.
Okay. I don't think I use that because I know in my opinion I use a lot.
Right. Personal negativity, we all do it. We could all do better. It stays on the list, right?
I was going to say, I do a lot of personal negativity. So.
Right. Chewing noises, mouth noises. I think we could throw heavy breathing on there.
My heart's bad. Leave me alone, Joe.
Right. No, there's
no, I know what you mean.
There's podcasts that I listen to, and I'm not going to do it because I hate it, but I'll tell you, where it's 2 people, 3 people, whatever, and as one person is there talking, the other person is not only right up on the microphone, but they're heavy breathing into the microphone.
Right.
Inside stories, jokes, or references, things like that.
Right.
That one, it's going to get removed soon, but it's going to stay on this year.
Right, because I was going to say you do that a lot. At least when you'll say, but you'll admit it. You'll go, that's for one person. That's an inside joke.
Right, so I haven't taken that back yet. I need to be better, and I need to be more mindful about that.
Right, because, I mean, we all do it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll drop something, and I'll be like, only Adam's going to get that, or only so-and-so is going to get that. You know what I mean? But a lot of times I try to sneak it in and be like, well, you don't even know that it's an inside joke or an inside story.
Terrible editing, sloppy editing, what some people call dynamic ad insertion.
Okay.
Where what they'll do is it's primarily if you host, and again, it's so narrowcast, but it happens on so many other podcasts where the Conrad verse podcast, your Bruce Pritchard, your Double J's, your Mick Foley's, and so on and so forth, and even Broski and them, they do a version of the show that's ad free, and then they do a version with ads, like live ad reads during the show. So what they do is they do the show as the live ad read. And then when they give it out ad free, they have somebody else kind of, sort of, maybe edit the ads out.
Right.
And it's like the sloppiest shit ever. Or there's people that have hosting through sites like Spreaker, or what the hell's, there's another one that does this where based on where you're downloading the show from, it's going to put personalized ads in there for you where you're downloading it from.
Right.
Just as an example, with the Iron Claw movie that just came out, I went and I'm like, I'm going to listen to The Lapsed Fan. They're a really big podcast. And I'm going to listen to them talking about the Iron Claw movie. And the first 3 dynamically inserted ads into the podcast were about applying for a line of credit at a bank in Ireland.
So now you're just you want ads like focused on you, is what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is you make so much money from your goddamn show already through your Patreon.
Oh, okay.
But you're going to host your podcast through a site that not only puts ads that don't make sense to they tell you, we're going to put ads in there so the person downloading it is going to get stuff that fits them where they are, dynamically inserted, and it's going to be just like it's part of the show, or they're not even going to notice it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when the show starts and 2 minutes in, I get the same ad for a bank in Ireland 3 times in a row, and it cuts off the beginning of their sentence and the end of their sentence, it's defeating the purpose of what they're trying to do.
Okay.
It's muddying up their show. It makes their show sound like shit. It's not giving me an ad for like something nearby me. It's giving me ads for something in another country that has nothing to do with me.
Right. See, I hate when I do terrible editing or terrible ad reading too, John.
Right.
So
Bake Me a Wish, right?
Oh, I miss Bake Me a Wish and Handy Holder, man.
Handy Holder. Now, see, that's not an inside reference. That's a reward for somebody who's been listening to us for 10 plus years.
And what was the other one? The Transporter?
Yes, the Transporter.
I still have my Transporter and remember the memory card that they sent with it because we got screwed?
Yes.
Oh, my God. Someday that's going to be a prize, you know? Yeah.
Maybe whoever wins the ESPN Pigskin Pick'ems.
Maybe.
The audio quality of your show, having a bad phone connection, having a bad internet connection.
Yep, you always hated that one.
It's 2023. If you can't get your shit together with your goddamn internet, or you're doing a podcast still over the phone, you should not be doing a podcast.
I mean, I've heard rumors we sound pretty good just using Skype, so.
Right. Wikipedia readers, where your podcast is just you reading Wikipedia.
and we've discussed this, if maybe you use, like, if you're like, oh, I can't remember what this was, like once in a blue moon, like, I just looking it up quickly on Wikipedia to vet something really quick. But you're talking about people who are like, oh, we're going to discuss this topic and then just read the Wikipedia topic about it.
And add no context, no transformative content, if you will. It's just, I'm going to pull up the Wikipedia page for the Oakland Raiders, and I'm just going to read about the Oakland Raiders, and that's my podcast this week.
Right. Where if, like, just say we were talking about football and you were like, oh, yeah, that's the Ghost to the Post game. And you're like, well, what's that? And I was like, that's the game. And I wouldn't remember where it is. So I'd look up the date with Wikipedia and be like, that's the one when the pass went to Casper, who's the Ghost. That was the nickname, you know, and he ran to the goalpost in the thing. And it's like, okay, I read that for a hot second. That's okay, right?
Fact checking, fine. Reading an entire wiki article from beginning to end as your content, not fine.
Right. I'm just trying to figure your mindset out.
Yes. Multiple people on the line or on the show. I say, like, once you're over, like, 4 is the nice peak number, but let's make sure everyone's listening, everyone's engaged, everyone has a good connection. Yeah, that one gets like a line, like it's not off the list, but it gets like a star next to it.
Right. I would say that one could never go off the list because I don't even listen to podcasts. And what was it, Supergirl that we did?
Yeah.
Way back in the day, that's one of my most traumatic memories of doing podcasts with you. Because it was like 8 or 9 people, 5 did not give a fuck about Supergirl.
Yeah.
And it was just like on top of each other. And I'm like, okay. And my opinion is if you have more than 2 people, and I even still kind of like with 2 people, you have to kind of have the video chat on.
Yes.
So you could be like, and not saying it's high school, put your hand up, be like, wait, I want to talk now. You know what I mean? Like, so when you have multiple people, it's just not chaos, you know?
Yes. And we only did it like 2 or 3 times before I gave up the ghost of trying to do it because we did it for Supergirl, we did it for Age of Ultron, and I think we did it for one other thing.
I only remember Supergirl. That one's burned into my brain.
Because
I wish we did it for Mark Pirro. That's the one I wish we did it for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so distracted by the chat. And that goes with social media. You're messaging people, you're texting people, just being distracted and not being engaged in your co-host, your topic, or anything else like that.
Right.
And a lot of these can like kind of fold into each other, but I like having them on here.
Yeah, I'll say I've gotten on that one looking up stuff for the next like segment that we're doing.
Yeah.
But not being like, oh, hey, Adam, I'll be over your house tomorrow, like during the show. You know what I mean?
But a lot of times, like you or I will be like, okay, we just finished up a topic. We need to put a bow on this, but you go ahead with the next thing. I'm going to look this up. Like we're acknowledging it,
right?
But it's not like you're just like cruising Twitter while, we're in the middle of a conversation or, making your lunch order.
Right. I've done it where I didn't tell you I was doing it and I got. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's like, oh, I need something for the next segment. And I forgot to bring it up. Oh, like an art attack or something. I'll be like, oh, let me. And you'll be like, right, Todd? And I'll be like, I have no idea what he just said. So, but it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
But
stay on schedule. Have a regular release schedule for your podcast. Don't have it just come out willy-nilly.
That one I didn't know what you meant. I thought maybe you meant like stay on your schedule during the show.
Nope.
Hit your marks. Your segments have to be X amount long. In other words, watch the clock, Joe.
Well, that's later on the list.
Okay.
Animosity with your commenters, your Twitter people. I'm going to take that one off the list only because that kind of falls into like personal negativity and being distracted by the chat.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's coming off the list this year. Saying I'll edit that later, I'll fix it in post.
I love that gag, but
I feel like we've taken that one back, so that's coming off the list.
Right, because if you're not going to do it, then it's not doesn't matter.
Right, but saying it as a bit, I think, is okay, so that's why it's coming off the list.
Mm-hmm.
Running out of time, watching the clock. That tells me that you're doing this to fill a quota, that you're not doing this because you want to do a show.
Right.
Yeah.
The only time I watch the clock is so you can get your Betty by time before you edit it.
Mm-hmm. But I don't care about that. Like, whatever,
No, I gotcha.
It is what it is. Don't let you watch the clock because you're worried about what time I might have to go to bed. I'll go to bed when everything's done. It doesn't matter if it's done at 11:30 or 12:30. When it's done is when I go to bed, right?
Gotcha.
Can I curse on the show?
I love that one too.
I think that's coming off the list.
Because we do that all the time now.
We do. Vocal fry. That's, and again, it's a little too nebulous, and I think it's something that people can't control.
Right. So I'm not even sure, like, that's one of those, and I don't want the description. I don't know the full definition of vocal fry. Yeah. I only know it as, like, sometimes, to me, it's almost like the Valley Girl talk. That's the only version of vocal fry that I understand.
That's close. And it's nebulous, so it's coming off the list because of the unclarity of it. Working in your politics, unless you're doing a political podcast, which a lot of people do, I don't know, keep your politics out of stuff. You're looking to possibly alienate 50% of your audience, maybe more, maybe less.
Mm-hmm.
The file size or format of your show is never coming off the list. If you can't figure out how to upload your show as an MP3 and they're on an RSS feed as an M4A podcast, M4A file, I'm not converting it so I could listen to it. I'm not downloading a player to listen to your podcast. I'm just never listening to your podcast.
That's one that I could not care less about because I have a player on my phone for something. So
right.
I don't listen to podcasts, so it doesn't matter.
Messenger or Discord noises, that kind of falls into distracted by the chat, and I think I'm going to take distracted by the chat because that's more or less the same thing. I get that you're not going to pay attention to your show, but when I hear your Messenger app or your Discord notifications going off in the background, that's an audio clue to me that you're not paying attention.
Right. And I'll just say the only time mine really goes off is because I forget to mute it before the show. And then I know I could hear you groan. You audibly groan when it happens. And then I immediately shut it off.
Yes.
Oh, did I do that now? Just as I'm looking. Yes, I did. Okay.
So we have bad improv.
My bread and butter, but go ahead.
So that has to stay on the list because anytime that there's all improv podcasts are bad. So if you try to do improv on your podcast and it's not a bad improv podcast, you are now a bad improv podcast and you're on the list of a podcast I'll never listen to.
Right. But I think that's really funny. Ha, 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 ha,
right.
Joe.
There you go. The fake laughing at things.
Right.
What you just did there was a bit of doing the fake laughing.
Right.
But if you listen to podcasts, the fake laughing when you hear it.
I listen to sports radio.
Yeah.
And I cringe when I hear people laughing at like the hint of a joke.
Yeah.
It's like, stop it.
Whispering into the microphone. I do that sometimes.
I do that, but more like the Homer Simpson bit.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's talking to you.
Right. Doing it as a bit, I think, is okay. Saying at the end of the day.
Okay.
When you're wrapping up your point. I really try hard not to do that, and I hate when I hear other people do it.
Right.
Yawners gets their own separate thing outside of chewing, mouth noises, heavy breathers. Again, we're all tired. We're all tuckered out. We all had a rough day building a fort or whatever the hell we were doing, right?
Hit the mute button.
The mute button. Now, these two I'm going to take off.
Because they were mine, weren't they?
Well, they were yours, but we're no longer in the new normal, and these times are no longer trying.
There'll always be trying times, Joe. I ain't changing my X name.
All right, they're coming off. And then, so this is the catch-22. Mouth noises, chewing, heavy breathing, yawners. We say mute yourself, But then the people who sit there, they muted themselves because they're doing one of those things, and then the person throws back to them, and they forgot to turn their mute off, and then the person's like, hello, are you still there? Yep. Oh, I forgot to unmute myself. God damn it. Take a second, write down time codes, clean that shit up in your podcast. Before when I said, oh, we're going to fix that in post, like that's the perfect storm of everything.
Right.
Saying chef's kiss. I hate that.
I don't do that, but I
hate it on a podcast.
I think that's going to be my new normal, Joe. But anyway.
The phraseology, spill the tea.
I kind of like that phrase. I like to learn the new young hip phrases like mid and throwing shade. So
can I teach you what I just learned what Riz is this week?
That was the name. That was actually, we discussed that a while back when I said on an episode that I have no Riz, but I didn't know. I knew what it meant, but I didn't know where it came from. And it comes from having charisma.
I just learned it this week on wrestling.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Never mind.
But spill the tea stays on there. People don't say it as much on podcasts that I listen to. But people say it in general, and I don't like it, so it stays on the list. This one's coming off, and this is people on podcasts that call Jerry of Jerry's Internet Wrestling Emporium. They call him Jerry with a G, and I could tell because I know who you are.
Yep, I saw that in the notes. It was even in parentheses, Joe.
That's right. So that's coming off because nobody talks about Jerry on podcasts anymore. Except
I think about Gerald, but I don't talk about him.
So the last one that we have to add, we eliminated a bunch. We've cleaned up the list. It's more streamlined. But the one that I have to add is if you have your podcast on some sort of pay site, like we have, you can get the podcast on Patreon, right? But we don't do a video version of the podcast. And there are people that do a video version of their podcast, and they do an audio version of the podcast, and they put the audio and the video version of it up on Patreon or whatever it is. And you could do it as like a link to YouTube or Vimeo or a third-party video player. Right. Or you could host the video on Patreon. Patreon's video hosting site sucks. It crashes out. It doesn't load properly. It's terrible. So if you host your video podcast on Patreon and not through a third-party link on your Patreon, you will never get me to watch that through your Patreon because Patreon's video player sucks.
Right. And that's why I'm not on Patreon getting videos.
Exactly. So we will revisit this in 1 year to see if there's any new ones, if the rest of the podcasting world has gotten their shit together. My money's on no. But in sending this to you today and going over it here and litigating it here on the show, I feel good that we are able to eliminate so many from the list.
You know what? I will sleep much better tonight.
I'm glad.
Good.
So that's a perfect spot to end the show. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Your continued support, whether you get the show free when it comes out on Friday, whether you've signed up for the Patreon, patreon.com/longboxheroes to get the show early. However it is, tell a friend, share it around. However it is you do you, partner. We're happy that you're still with us. We were kind of discussing this here, that there's people that have been with us on the Patreon since day one, and it's one thing to give us your money, but there's people that have followed us through like 3 different shows, like all the way back to when it was 3 Guys from Nowhere. They've been with us the whole time,
That's loyalty, baby.
That's what we're looking for. Whether it's loyalty with your money or loyalty just in your fandom, whether you're silent or whether you're public about it, we appreciate it. And, hopefully you have a good year. If 2023 wasn't your year, maybe 2024 will be your year. And, good luck to everyone out there. Thanks, like I said, for your continued support. And we'll see you all next week.
And next year.
And next year as well. Thank you.
You're listening to the soon-to-be-named network, the Lamborghini of podcast networks.